Afternoon of the 4th day. The tragedy of 0.14.
Part 3. Just past 9 o'clock p.m. I was alone in Kunagisa's room, viewing the digital camera data on the PC that looked like I might just barely be able to operate it. I had no mouse, making it difficult to control, but it wasn't completely over my head. Kanami's corpse. A shot from the chest up as well as a full body shot. A shot of the severed neck and a shot of the river of paint. In the middle of the river floated a coat. The paint having dried and hardened, we couldn't remove it. I suppose we could have forced the coat out, but it was already ruined with paint, so there was no point. And finally, the picture I had modeled for, Kanami's final work. That unnaturalness I felt upon first seeing the canvas during our crime scene investigation. The disconnect. The alien vibe. It was just a gut feeling. But... I get it, I muttered to myself. Of course, now that I saw it, it was so simple. The bigger mystery was why it had taken me so long to notice. It was such an obvious picture flaw. But this just raised further questions. How could something like this happen? There was no reason something like that should happen. How could an artist of Kanami's caliber make such a simple error? As I thought about it, somebody knocked on the door. It had to be Maki, here to harass me again. I rose from my seat, almost looking forward to it by now. But when I opened the door, it was actually Hikari.
Good evening.
Thrown into confusion by how far off my guess had been, I stared at her for 2 or 3 seconds with no brain functionality. Hey, Hikari. Somehow, I managed to string the words together. Please, come in.
Sorry to bother you.
With a polite bow, she entered the room. She glanced around it for a moment, and then asked me,
Where might I find Tomo?
Oh, Kunagisa? I tied her up and tossed her in the tub just a minute ago.
Huh?
She's like a cat. She hates taking baths. Her hair is actually supposed to be a much lighter blue. She never washes it, so it gets all dark like that. She's no good at slipping out of bonds, and once she gets wet, she just kind of gives up. So she could be in there for a while.
Oh. True. She's kind of like a Russian blue.
Though Hikari wore an expression of dawned enlightenment, what she said didn't make any sense. Seriously, I don't know what she was talking about. Better just to ignore it. So anyway, if you need to talk to her, I'm sorry, but you're probably going to have to wait for Then, a thought occurred to me. Maybe this was a good opportunity. Say, Hikari, are you free right now?
Sure. I've finished all my work for the day anyway.
Then would you mind staying here for a while? It might be dangerous for me to leave Kunagisa alone, I said, recalling Maki's lecture this afternoon. It should be fine now that we've made it hard for the killer to do anything. But just in case, do you mind?
No, it's okay, I guess,
she said, though she wore a troubled expression.
Of course I don't mind, but is it really okay? I mean, to trust me?
No one would attack both of you at the same time.
No, I mean, you don't think you're leaving her vulnerable?
Oh, that. It's okay. I nodded. I wouldn't know about, say, Maki, but I trust you. With that, I shut the door. I headed down the hall, then descended the stairs to the first floor. I trust you, I muttered, self-mockingly. Since when was I the type to make such grandiose claims? Didn't sound like me. Question: what is trust? Answer: not minding if you're betrayed. Not regretting if you're betrayed. Either way, it's nonsense. I arrived at my destination. Once my own room, now Akane Soniyama's prison. It's me, I said, knocking lightly.
Oh, you,
Came her reply after a moment. She sounded surprisingly calm.
What's up? Should you be away from Kunagisa? It doesn't seem like you.
Well, I had my own hesitations, but I wanted to apologize to you.
Why should you apologize?
Came her reply from the other side of the door, slightly laced with crankiness.
Weren't you the one who stood up for me? Coming here and apologizing is like saying I'm too much of a thick-headed imbecile to even understand that. If anything, I should be thanking you. I should have suggested this in the first place, but that probably wouldn't have gone over so well, so I was thankful when you brought it up. I should express my gratitude right now.
She paused for a moment.
Thank you.
You're welcome. She hadn't risen to the ranks of the Seven Fools for nothing. That wasn't the kind of forgiving place where you could get by with just a little studying and a sharp wit.
By the way, when Hikari brought my dinner, she mentioned you guys have been snooping around a bit. You and Kunagisa. Mind if I ask how it was?
Well, I still don't know who the killer is.
You still don't know, huh? Huh, should I be reading into that? I like your style. Okay, sure. Let me ask a different question. Got any theories on the locked room?
How about you?
I think it's a case of the post hoc fallacy.
Is that English?
Latin. I think it's sort of like, you reap what you sow.
Ah, I sighed. In that case, she must have already figured out the trick behind the locked room. She had solved the mystery, and yet was staying here to maintain the state of equilibrium. She was really an amazing woman, I thought. She laughed.
Until Iria's dear Ayakawa, was it? Until that person arrives, it's probably best that I stay in here. It's no real problem for me anyway. I used to sit in a cramped room and read all the time when I was young, and that room was way smaller than this.
Do you know who the killer is?
That I don't. It's no lie, I mean it. That kind of thing isn't my specialty, and although I do read the occasional mystery novel, it's only for recreation. Say, do you ever read Mushana Koji?
The subject had changed without so much as a segue. Was Mushana Koji even a mystery novel author? I've only pecked at his selected works, I answered, with a slightly confused look on my face.
Then you must know the story Shinri-sensei.
I did.
I read the title as Mari-sensei at first, and was incensed that the woman was so horribly full of herself. Not that I can talk. But do you remember how, at the beginning, Truth-sensei discusses the reason killing isn't okay?
Yeah, He's like, is there ever a time when you wouldn't mind being killed? If you can think of a condition under which you wouldn't mind being killed, please let me know. If you don't like the thought of being killed under any circumstance, then you have no right to kill another, right? Even with a memory as bad as mine, this much had stuck with me.
Correct,
Akane said.
Now let me ask you the same question. Under what condition would you feel it's okay to be killed?
There isn't one.
But what if, for example, you had to choose between your life and Kunagisa's?
I don't want to think about it.
Right.
Akane laughed lightheartedly.
In the end, that is what you are. You hate making decisions, don't you? You dislike the act of deciding in and of itself. Yesterday, Himeno was saying similar things about you, but she nailed it, didn't she? You just go with the flow. You hate competition and you hate making things clear-cut. You have to keep things ambiguous.
I won't argue with that.
You won't argue, but you won't agree. You accepted my shogi challenge because you knew you would definitely lose. You wouldn't accept a challenge or compete otherwise.
I didn't hate losing. I hated competing. I was thoroughly put off by the idea of vying with others over something. I hated arguing as well, so I never made friends.
Do you dislike other people?
Asked Akane. Not particularly.
Then do you like them?
Certainly not.
That's right. The foundation of your values rests on the idea that people are meant to live solitary lives. That's your view, yes? Or rather, your will. That's the absolute principle around which you're constructed. You try your best not to get involved and not to cause trouble or pain for anyone. Of course, you can share happiness and good times with others, but you don't see why you should suffer pain and sorrow just to maintain those relationships. Isn't that right?
I always thought couples who spend all their time fighting and stay together all the same were just idiotic. Why don't they get along? Couldn't they just do that much? Why couldn't they? Since when were you such a psychologist, Akane?
Sorry, but I'm a grand unifying, unitary scholar. Such distinctions are meaningless to me. You must really, truly enjoy being alone.
Well, after all, I'm my oldest friend.
True enough. That's the case for everyone, including me. So how about Kunagisa? Altogether, you spent less than a year with her, right? Do you like her?
It was a straight question. I'd been asked the same one 5 years ago. That time, it was her older brother who asked. However, the answer remained the same. Not especially. No. My voice came out so despairingly cold that I almost wondered if it was really mine. Why was I like this?
Is that so?
She sounded a little surprised.
Because she likes you, you know. That much is certain.
Yeah, I know. She told me more than a few times.
I don't particularly like this kind of discussion, but have you ever wondered why the world is full of couples? Why so many people get together? I mean, isn't it strange? It would be too convenient for the person you like to ever like you back. Life isn't a girl's comic book. But sure enough, in reality, you take a group of 100 people, a whole lot of them are going to find love. Why do you think that is?
I have no idea. I've never thought about it. Isn't it just coincidence? Like the law of great numbers or something?
I don't think so. A coincidence like that is unfeasible. This is the conclusion I've reached. It's because it feels good to be loved. Being loved by another person is enough to make you happy and make you love that person in return.
Akane declared. I could see her clever little smile, even through the door. This was becoming more than I could bear much longer. I felt like I was about to be crushed to death. So what are you getting at?
Oh, no. I was just wondering why you hadn't fallen for Kunigisa. You know how it is for us scholars. If we can't figure something out, it'll bother us to no end.
She likes everyone. Seriously, everyone. It's not like she wants me with her in particular. I weaved a response.
So that's it,
Akane said.
You don't want to be liked by her. You want to be chosen by her, as her one and only.
I couldn't argue with that.
But why her? That's what I can't figure out. It seems like there must be some obvious reason, but I don't get it. There have to be unpleasant aspects to hanging out with her. In fact, one would think you'd be repulsed by such an easy woman.
An easy woman? Who? You mean easygoing.
Right. Anyway, someone with your personality shouldn't be able to tolerate a superior but juvenile presence. Plus, you're a man.
It's fun being with her. Or, well, I chose my words carefully. Rather, it's fun being by her side. My favorite place in the world was by Tomo Kunigisa. I had returned to Japan for that very reason. Akane said.
You're a little masochistic, aren't you?
Yeah, basically. I got bullied in elementary school, see?
You were bullied? No, I doubt it. I think you were blackballed. There's a difference between the two. Children abuse weaklings and liars. They blackball the heterodox. But I know how you feel. When I was in high school, I felt like I was surrounded by aliens. When we took exams, nobody shot for a perfect grade. They shot for the average. If we ran a marathon, they would say, "Hey, let's all run together." Tests where no answer is outright wrong. It's egalitarian, for better or for worse. No wonder they're teaching that pi equals 3. Indeed, each of the other 7 fools claims to have experienced similar feelings. It's the tragedy of 0.14. When you're thoroughly egalitarian, the outliers who are excluded even then get to taste true isolation. Genius comes of heterodoxy, but not all outcasts are geniuses.
You mean it's a necessary, but not a sufficient condition? Well, I'm sure no genius.
Maybe not, but I think you at least know the difference between advice and an order, so let me give you some friendly advice. If you want Kunigisa to choose you, I recommend you just take her. If you do that, you'll be the only one for her. She won't resist, that much is for sure. Regardless of how introverted, morose, or warped you may be, no matter how gloomy a stranger you are to adolescence and rebellious phases, I'm sure you at least have the balls to do that.
I don't.
You're a real mallard, huh?
A what? Some sort of lame duck? I'm not even sure this time. But you think I'm a coward?
Oh, I'm sorry. I like you, you know. It's too bad you aren't a woman.
Why the hell? I didn't know what she was trying to say anymore. No, that's wrong. It was simply becoming too painful to keep myself together any longer. If this went on any longer, any longer at all.
Well, it's okay,
Akane said.
I'm sure everything will become clear soon enough. Time always gives things some clarity. Say, by the way, have you ever heard the theory that in zero-sum games like shogi and chess, there's always a best move to make?
Is that game theory? Like the prisoner's dilemma?
Yeah, that. The movement of the shogi pieces is mathematically limited, so there is always a best move. If you take that to an extreme, you can say the match is decided after the very first move. Of course, this assumes that both opponents are perfect players. So how about the killer in our case? How about this Aikawa who will play opposite? Isn't it a fascinating notion? Still, this mystery feels more like a maze than a shogi board.
A labyrinth, huh? But mazes are simple. If you just stick your hand on one wall, you'll eventually find the way out. It just takes time.
You're talking about a simple maze. I think this case is more like a multi-connected labyrinth. There's a surefire strategy even for such mazes, but it's kind of hard to explain. If you have a chance, try looking it up. But don't you ever want to play a game with no surefire strategy?
A game with no surefire strategy. A sure way to win. Well, so did this case have one? Anxiety. Like standing on shaky legs. I felt sick.
If you think about it,
she continued. This sickening conversation, even though it was sickening. Akane, I said, at last unable to contain myself. I'd like to keep talking like this, but I've left someone waiting in my room, so... I forced my words together into a sentence. I fought the urge to throw up. I think I'd better get back.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
She acquiesced, readily despite my fears.
Anyway, please come again. You sure help pass the time.
Thanks. Well, see you later. With that, I began to leave, but there was something that still bothered me. I knocked once again. About your first question.
What's up?
Do you have them? Moments where you wouldn't mind being killed.
Moments. Not mere moments. Always.
It was a clear answer.
I'll die when my time is up, regardless of where or how I die, or who kills me for what reason. You won't hear a complaint out of me.
And with that, I returned to Kunagisa's room, never thinking for a second that this would be my final interaction with Akane Soniyama, the leading Japanese woman scholar of her generation. That genius of geniuses of the highest order, of the Seven Fools, of the Comprehensive Research Center, ER3.